We head over straight into Mariners-related news as things continue. Tomorrow is the MLB trade deadline, so things are going to get interesting around here, I'm sure. We'll get into the games, though, before we discuss any sort of trade deadline acquisitions and such. The Mariners headed out on a 6-game road trip in 7 days after a 10-game homestand, beginning with the Minnesota Twins, a Twins team that they saw for 4 games during that 10-game homestand. So they've played that team 7 games in 10 days, I believe it was. So a lot of time to see a certain team. Anyway, they head over to the state of Great Lakes, July 24th at the Twins, a 3-4 loss. Unfortunately, player of the game, pinch hitter / second baseman Colton Wong. Wong had a 1 hit, 1 run, and 2 RBIs. A pinch hit go-ahead homer in the top of the 9th inning actually gave the Mariners a 3-2 lead at the time. Seattle was unable to close the deal in the bottom of the 9th and then failed to score in extra innings to lose that game as Carlos Correa walked that off. So they lose the series opener. But on the 25th, they come back with a 9-7 win. Play the game center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Julio got bumped down lower in the order in this ball game, and he responded with a 2-hit, 2-run, 3 RBI game. Both of those home runs. It is his first multi-homer game of the season. So Julio responding there and really starting to turn things up. We'll get to that in a minute, but we'll finish out this series against the Twins. July 26th at the Twins, an 8-7 win. So the Mariners win their 2nd consecutive series, beating the Twins in Minnesota, a Twins team that had been the hottest team wins-wise since the All-Star break. Our player of the game shortstop, Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore slots in for J.P. Crawford, who got the day off, hitting 3 hits just doesn't sound right. 2 runs and 4 RBIs. It's Moore's first multi-homer game of his career, and it really looked like at this point in time the Demo was starting to find his groove after missing all of spring training and really struggling in the first month, really, that he had been activated off the injury list. So they win that series against the Twins after losing the first game. They get a day off as they head down to Arizona to play this Diamondbacks team that's got a lot of talent. They're really young, including Seattle native and all-star Corbin Carroll. So we go over to this Diamondback series here. July 28th at the D-backs, a 5-2 win, so they begin the series the right way. Our player of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh. Cal, 2 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBIs on the day. So they get game 1 of the series. They lose game 2, unfortunately, in a tight one. Corbin Carroll actually represented the winning run in the bottom of the 8th, stealing a base. Well, he advanced on a balk first after drawing a walk, stole third base, and then it would advance on a bloop single in the center field. So Corbin Carroll terrorizing on the base path. Our player of the game here, catcher Tom Murphy, 1 hit, 1 run, and 2 RBIs. Tom has a solo homer, and he gets that second RBI on a sac fly. So they lose that one. I mean, you lose by 1 run to this Diamondbacks team that surprised a lot of people. I don't think that's a disappointing thing necessarily. Disappointing in the way you lost it, sure, but understandable that you would lose 1 game to them. They bounce back on July 30th to win the series, their 3rd consecutive series win, a 4-0 win as they shut out this Diamondbacks team. As our player of the game, starting pitcher Luis Castillo, is rock solid. La Piedra, 6 innings pitched, 2 hits given up, no runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. It's his 12th quality start of the season. So he continues to be valuable for this Mariners team as the ace of the Mariners here. And in this ball game, actually, after there was a period of time leading into the All-Star break where Luis kind of struggled, Castillo was able to narrow his ERA down to 2.88, which is the 3rd best in the American League. So, it was a good stretch here. The Mariners recorded double-digit hits in 5 consecutive games. It's the most consecutive 10-plus hit games for the Mariners all season. They improved to a 500 series record, meaning that they are 16-16-2 across the series that they have played this year. It was their 10th shutout of the season, and they, as I mentioned, had won 3 consecutive series. Our player of the past week, there are plenty of good options. Tom Murphy has been hitting the ball well, really finding his groove. Dylan Moore had been really productive until he is now day-to-day. At the moment, J.P. Crawford has a great OPS over the past week, but we went with Julio considering his overall stats. Julio and JP were really kind of neck and neck, but because of the total amount of stats that we saw with Julio, I went with Julio over the past 7 days for the 2022 AL Rookie of the Year. 10 hits, 7 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, so 6 total extra base hits, 4 RBIs, 1 stolen base, a 345 batting average, a 367 on base percentage, which could be improved, but still, a 759 slugging, which is great to see from a guy who shows a lot of power and been struggling a lot. There's still some things for him to work on, surely, and a 1.126 OPS for Julio there. Really good to see that sort of improvement from Julio after he had struggled to begin the season. Kind of finding a groove here. There's still some moments where he needs to improve. He's had 9 plate appearances in the 9th inning, and 6 of those plate appearances have ended in strikeouts. I don't believe any of them have recorded a hit. So an area for him to improve there, certainly, but the Mariners are in a very interesting situation. We talked about this last week about, that series win against the Blue Jays. Was it enough? Did they need a series sweep of the Blue Jays, considering where the Blue Jays are in the wild card picture and where the Mariners are? So the Mariners are going to need a little help if they're going to get to the postseason, right? And they got that yesterday. Yesterday went perfect for them in terms of who lost and where they ended up and the fact that they won as well. The Mariners are currently set at 5 games behind the Texas Rangers for the division. So technically, the division is still somehow in play here for a Mariners team that has been arguably the most mediocre in terms of win-loss and when they've been at 500 over the course of this season. And they are 4 games behind a wild card spot. So it's very realistic. Not very realistic, but it's very possible, rather, that the Mariners are going to be able to find themselves in the playoff picture. That leaves them in an interesting situation now because President of Baseball Operations, Jerry Dipoto, said before this Diamondback series that they just won that they aren't going to make a decision on what they're going to do at the trade deadline until after the Diamondback series. It is now after that Diamondback series. And, considering the fact that they won that series and where they are in terms of the division, where they are in terms of the wild card, where they are in terms of what they need, being a buying team at the trade deadline makes sense. You could also argue that you'd like to retool and reload for the 2024 season, considering the fact that other opponents in your division, like Texas, adding Max Scherzer at the trade deadline, ahead of it, the Astros adding, the Angels adding, that, hey, you could do that. You could kind of bow your head out and say, hey, we're going to reload. We're going to do a light sell-off, and we're going to prep for 2024. But at least me, maybe I'm stubborn. I know I'm stubborn, but we'll say maybe just for the show. I'd like to buy. I'd like to buy at the trade deadline. That is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific time. The Mariners do play a game 3 hours and 40 minutes later after that trade deadline expires. So it's going to be an interesting next few days, folks. The Mariners are playing the Boston Red Sox these next few days in a odd 3-game homestand. And the Red Sox are one of the teams that the Mariners are trying to get ahead of in terms of this wild card race. The Red Sox are in that highly competitive American League East. As we get the wild card standings to load here. They won't load. I'll just put them on my... Okay, there they go. So, Boston is actually the first team looking into the playoff picture, as the Rays, Astros, and Blue Jays are the 3 current teams that sit in the wild card. The next 3 teams out are Boston, New York, and LA. I apologize. The Mariners are 4.5 games out of the wild card. So you've got those teams to get over. So if you are able to win this series, or in the greatest scenario, sweep the Red Sox, which won't be easy. I mean, they're 5-5 over the last 10 games, lost their last 2. I digress. That would be huge. You kind of need to win the series no matter what, let alone sweep it. So it'll be really big. But just to get a final prediction out there of what I think the Mariners will do at the trade deadline, I think they stay pat. I honestly think they stay pat. I don't know what Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander can do in the Mariners front office to really get a improving bat to add to this lineup without sacrificing too much. Emerson Hancock is a name that comes to mind in terms of trades. But, hey, we've seen crazier things happen. We were live on air when Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker were acquired. So who knows? We get over here to continue with actual team news and not to just stray off. On the 26th, the team did make a trade. They traded for reliever Trent Thornton from the Toronto Blue Jays. Seattle receives Thornton. He was DFA'd a few days before this trade as the Blue Jays made room for Genesis Cabrera. And Toronto receives Tacoma infielder Mason McCoy. So kind of a non-move there. Trent Thornton actually made his first appearance for the organization last night, pitching in one inning of relief for the Rainiers and striking out 2 batters, not recording any other stats. No hits allowed, no runs allowed, no walks, just 2 strikeouts. So that's a good way to get your first sort of impression there for the organization. And the Mariners have dealt with injuries to their pitching staff regardless. So not a bad idea to add a reliever there. But again, it's going to be a big trade deadline. It's a big next 2 days. The Mariners sit at a 55-win, 51-loss record. They're 4 games above 500, which is great. They're 4th in the American League West, though. 5 games back from the division. We'll take a look at they're 4.5 games back from the wild card. It will be 5.5 games back from the division. So still possible. Looking ahead, they have a 3-game set here against the Boston Red Sox. We already stated the importance of this series. The first 2 games of the series on July 31st and August 1st are both 6:40 p.m. Pacific time start. With August 2nd, the series finale on Wednesday is a 1:10 Pacific time matinee. After the really tiny 3-game homestand, the Mariners head out on the road to battle an Angels team that's decided that they're not going to trade Shohei Ohtani, and they're rather buying now to try and win this season. They have 4 games set down in Anaheim. The first 2 games of the series on the 3rd and 4th of August are 6:30 p.m. Pacific time first pitches. August 5th and game 3 is a 6:07, and then to close out on Sunday, August 6th, is a 1:07 p.m. Pacific time start. So